Hey, it's Wednesday, June 22nd, 2022. Welcome back to another episode. I've got about 3 items that I got to just brush right through before I go to the podcast, which is anchor.fm//Chris dash comments. Okay. If you type that, anchor.fm/Chris dash comments, it'll get you to my podcast, which is through Spotify. My Anchor podcast has me speak a lot more elaborate and through a longer piece of time, about a full hour. As opposed to here on YouTube, I have to mind my manners, mind my language, and at the same time try to focus on not being offensive. Not that that's what I'm striving for, but at the same time, some things that I say can be considered offensive or whatever, because I find facts and I speak the truth. So I'm going to breeze through 3 different subjects, and I do apologize for just coming up with 3 or 4. 3 subjects. Oh, sorry. 3 subjects and 1 that involves conspiracies. Okay. First subject. A synagogue in Florida is suing the state over its abortion law, arguing that it violates religious freedom of Jewish people. The Florida bill states it bans most abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. The opposition: under Jewish law, abortion is required if necessary to protect the health, mental, or physical well-being of the woman, and for other reasons that would not be allowed under the bill. Okay, that's a strong point to make, given the fact that that this is exactly what I was talking about with my faith, the Christian faith, and its responsibilities. I like to point out a little history lesson. Up until 1869, abortion was a Christian responsibility. That's true. Now, it got later on frowned upon by churches, and it's easy to understand why. 1869 was post-Civil War, post-Napoleonic Wars, post-troubles in South Africa, where the English were trying to take over, Saudi Arabia area, where train tracks were being laid out throughout the desert country, and it was in quite opposition of many rebels and terrorists and all that good stuff. There were a lot of Christians out of good Christian countries that were dying, and the population obviously dropped considerably enough to where something like this, abortion, should be frowned upon. Okay, now that was back in 1800s. Now we're at 2022. The whole world, not just our Christian-based countries, but the whole world is overpopulated now. And the Jews are currently hanging on to the responsibility of abortion, something that I wish my faith would go back to, just simply because the Christian faith had it far more on par than anything scientific. And yeah, I get what you got to understand. I get what I'm saying, is sort of counteracting the sonograms and all that stuff that can see a heartbeat going while the fetus is still symbiotic to the woman. But there's a difference between that and what Christian faith has been going through since before 1869, or 1917, when it was an official anti-abortion law, religious law, in 1917, 40 years later. But before all of that, and throughout, the past 2,000 years, everybody went with this thing called the quickening, and that is where the woman, the host, can actually feel the heartbeat of her child, of the baby in the womb. Okay? That's a huge difference from some kind of sonogram peekaboo thing, sonogram technology, where it can see a heart rate, but it can't tell as to whether or not it's still a symbiotic fetus or an actual baby. You know, the Christian method, before it became illegal in religious law, was going by way of the quickening. Okay? And that was where, again, the woman felt the presence of that baby, where she could actually feel her baby's heartbeat. Once she's got that, that's a sure sign that the baby cannot be aborted. It was also a sure sign that it was most times than likely to be a healthy baby, a sane one, and possible good, what do you call it? Possible good candidate for the future, for a good future. I'm not really sure what the correct term is, but it was a good sign to go by the quickening, for the woman to go through the quickening, and for mankind through Christian faith to abide by that rule of thumb. It's a good rule of thumb to follow. And currently, unfortunately, 2,000 years after Christ, into the second millennia, the only people that are hanging on to that is the Jewish faith. Now, props go to them. I want them to win their argument, but I seriously wish our Christian faith could go back to those days as well, because it's just so close to being foolproof by comparison to the sonogram, where it's still just a recording of a symbiotic nature, but it still doesn't guarantee, based off of the probable odds of being a good baby, a healthy baby, the right choice to give birth to it, to be more specific, as opposed to the quickening, where something would drastically have to happen for something to go wrong. And that's a huge difference between the sciences that still don't quite got it, as opposed to the faith, that one rule of thumb, which is not an exact science, but it is one heck of a good sign to follow when it does occur. And that's my spew on that. I hope the Jewish faith, I hope they win their case. I honestly hope they win their case, and I hope it leads to my faith following through on that end. Now, the second subject, and I do apologize for zipping through this, because on my podcast I could take a whole hour on each subject. But here we go. Racial justice organizations call to reinstate the enhanced child tax credit. According to experts, this could really help a lot of low-income families. And I believe it. It's a group of more than 40 groups, including Unidos US, the NAACP, the Economic Security Project, National Urban League, Community Change Action, and the Leadership Conference, and plenty more to follow. They all sent a letter advocating the reinstatement of the enhanced tax credit to Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer in May, as part of President Biden's American Rescue Plan signed into the law in March of this year. Families with eligible children receive monthly payments of up to $300 per child through the credit. Now, this is also per month. Keep that in mind. So they're not really getting rich. The second half of the credit is delivered to the families in the form of a tax refund, which means only once a year. Yeah. Okay, $300 for those of you who don't know anything about raising children. $300 a month, it ain't squat. Okay, you go through that in a heartbeat. Making the child tax credit fully refundable has benefited over 27 million children of families with no or very little earned income could receive still its full value who were previously unable to qualify for the credit or even a partial of it. Now the CTC, that's the child tax credit, was roughly a 1.75 trillion economic bill that failed to pass the Senate. Okay, the Dems are going to try anyway. They're going to try it again. Hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood. The other proposal was Senator Mitt Romney's plan, $350 per month per child. However, would include a work requirement. Families would have to earn at least $10,000 during the year to get the full benefit. That's kind of favoring a lot of politicians there. They're looking at Mitt Romney's plan and they're thinking they're going to go along more with that proposal. I think it makes sense because it's earned income, taxable earned income, so money's coming back to us despite the fact that chump change and $350 a month per child is chump change, is going to be given to the people that apply for it. And whatever it goes, it's just important to remember what everybody currently is saying about this. Poverty is a choice. Allowing millions of children to fall back into poverty is also a political choice. It's not wrong. I mean, it sounds harsh. It sounds like we're putting the politicians back up against the wall. But it's not wrong. The third thing that I wanted to talk about. Oh, get this. Chevron CEO urges Biden to stop criticizing big oil and to take a new approach. Oh my God. Here we go. Chevron chief executive Michael Worth, the only one apparently with the balls to step out and say something while everybody else is just sort of hiding out there, on Tuesday rebutted White House officials' criticism of the oil industry over energy costs, saying reducing fuel prices will require a change of approach by the government. Yeah, it's the government's doing. After Biden blasted the oil companies on June 10th for making record profits and urging them to increase oil production and refining capacity to alleviate gasoline prices, accusing ExxonMobil Corporation of making more money than God and not drilling enough. Worth said the oil industry needs clarity and consistency on policy matters ranging from leases and permits on federal land to the ability to permit and build critical infrastructure. Yes. And regulation that considers cost and benefits. Regulation that considers cost and benefits. I think we know what kind of regulation this means. Quote, we need honest dialogue. One that recognizes our industry is a vital sector of the U.S. economy and essential to our national security. Okay, let's look at what the fool was saying here. Okay, first off, that entire quote is the most idiotic statement ever. Okay, currently it's just topped off so many other people. Okay, they need permits and build critical infrastructure. Okay, despite the fact that for the last 3 years, many plants and refineries were shut down by the oil companies themselves when the fuel demand sank all throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay? Plants closed and people were fired. All right? Okay, so this whole crap about that the government needs us to go build and refine and all this other stuff. They need to just not get in our way. That's what he's saying. This, again, despite the fact that when the pandemic hit, the only thing that these did, instead of just bearing down, grinning and bearing it and trying to make sure that everything eases through, they shut down the plants and fired people. Now, I can't remember which episode it was, but I'm going to go ahead and remind everybody the BS that oil companies do. I think it was like 350,000 employees, and yet a third of that is immediately dropped off within the first quarter year. But I'll get to elaborating that. But here's the thing. Another key word that got my attention was clarity and consistency on policy matters ranging from leases and permits on federal land. Okay, this takes me back to the Keystone days. Okay, Keystone Pipeline, where all the Native Americans on their private reservation land had trespassers, had the company Oil Fuel Industries trespassing over reservation land, building over the graves of Native Americans and sacred religious sites to set up the pipeline. They didn't have to do that. There were other ways around it. In fact, there was a hell of a lot more if they had just moved more centered, more central Midwest, and stayed on the flat and nice and flat and straight to Texas, which is where it wound up ending, straight to Texas land. There was no need to cross over reservation land. And yet Worth still complains, I personally don't believe there will be a new petroleum refinery ever built in this country. The world is constrained at a time when product demand is growing. Okay, this is the same BS that was stated during the pipelines. Okay, this was the same BS that was stated all about Keystone, the Dakota Access Pipeline, and a few times before that when oil companies were digging tunneling pipelines underneath one of the Great Lakes. Okay, they were saying all of this crap while pipelines were breaking and dumping tens of thousands of barrels in a couple of days, costing millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that would not have been done if the stuff was done properly, heavy regulated under the eyes of the government. And because of a guy flying a drone noticed the oil leak out of the Keystone Pipeline. Okay, some hikers through the woods found the leak coming out of the ground over in the Great Lakes area. Okay, there wasn't inspectors. It had nothing to do with the companies. It had nothing to do with the state. There were no inspectors. There were no engineers inspecting and looking over everything. It was all discovered upon by accident. Sorry for the blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to get all these words out. Okay. So this whole crap about ranging from leases and permits on federal land and the ability to permit and build critical infrastructure, regulation that considers costs and benefits. Okay, that is obviously the oil companies wanting to go back to what they're still technically doing, despite the fact that it's being frowned upon. 350-some thousand jobs on trucks, deliveries, drillers, and all the employers in between, just to start working. And once product starts to be produced, instead of continuously paying everybody, they reduce by start laying off people and pocketing more cash. Okay, and this is what they say is, well, this stuff can't operate itself and we don't really need these people anymore. We have to move on and consider the next drilling phase and all this other garbage. In order to make it legal to hire somebody, pay them just enough to what they need, and then boot them out while profiting the rest. Whatever was supposed to be invested in on the employees as they progress, producing more and more oil in either the same drill or moving on to the next drill. You know, it's all project work, ergo, yeah, you can make some money on drill number 1. But because there's something over here at drill number 2, well, we don't really need you anymore. We'll just take the employees that applied for drill number 2. And if there is a drill number 3, well, apply for that one. But if there's not, well, best of luck to you. Okay, this is what business companies has been doing for quite a good while. They've been looking like this great pay and all this other stuff. You got employees' testimony on YouTube about how great it is when they're working for them. But when they're not, you know, oh, the oil companies are rigged and this stuff and this corruption. Damn it, Hillary. You know, and why I say that is because, well, they're following nothing but rhetoric. They're saying, you know, hey, what about the oil jobs for the next drill? And the oil companies are saying, well, what is Obama going to do about it? You know, oh, sorry, it's now Biden. Well, what is Biden going to do about it? You know, it's the same shit. This crap is what they're talking about. Regulation that considers the costs and benefits and the expenses of the oils and all this other crap. Okay, these are all key words of how much bull crap the oil companies, not just the CEO. The CEO here is saying, Michael Wirth of Chevron, he's saying what every chief executive is saying, okay? He's saying what every chief executive. It's just that he's the one that's actually coming out to the media trying to spread this crap, despite the fact, you know, that it's still nothing but crap. So I'm coming up to the half-hour mark. Again, I do apologize for zipping through all of this crap. Here's the conspiracy real quick. I got 8 minutes. The Texas GOP is pushing for a referendum to decide if the state will secede from the U.S. What? Okay. The state GOP outlined the intention to process for a referendum which contains a section of state sovereignty wherein it specified its demand that the state holds a vote on the matter and outlines the Texas Republican Party's opinion that the federal government has impaired its right to self-govern. Here we go. Another talk about secession. Now, here's some keywords, okay? Here's some keywords, okay? The reasoning. If it's proposed that any federal mandate legislation infringes upon the 10th Amendment rights of Texas should be ignored, opposed, refused, and nullified. The proposal says this vote would be on the ballot of 2023 and have Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton to have concurrent jurisdiction to prosecute election fraud along with the county's district attorneys. What? Okay. So in other words, we're going to put something on the ballot. We're going to have all of you vote for it, but we're going to have one of our guys in charge of it instead of like a voting committee, a nonpartisan voter committee. Instead, we're putting one of our guys in charge of it. Okay? That's the guy saying, I'm setting up a daycare despite the fact that I'm a pedophile, but I'm not going to be in it. I'm going to appoint my neighbor out of this sex offender neighborhood. My neighbor will be in charge of it. That's all I saw. That's all he just said. That's all that this thing says. Okay? According to the Constitution, Texas is not able to unilaterally leave the Union. Okay? Now, what I've also noticed on the side is Ted Cruz, who spoke in November of last year, November 2021, we're not there yet And if there comes a time where it's hopeless, in reference to America, then I think we take NASA, we take the military, we take the oil. You see what's happening, right? You saw that, right? You heard that, right? We take NASA, something that technically Texas can host. But I don't know if they know this or not, but all the rockets that we send up there in Florida are not being made here in Texas, okay? We take NASA. With that, all that says is that we take the building that says you're clear to launch. We take the military. Texas has its own military already. But it's nowhere near as tough enough to stand up to the U.S. Not by a long shot. And we take the oil. Okay, we already have oil drills that are being ignored and turned down. And the only way that is going to be used or drilled out, in accordance to the CEOs of every oil company, is if they get leases and permits on federal land. Ted Cruz really needs to shut up. But here's the thing. I'm not gonna lie. Even I thought it would be cool to have Texas as its own state. As its own country. I mean, its own state. Yes, it's already its own state. Shut up, Uber driver. I thought it would be cool if Texas was its own country. But looking at it the way it's being ran right now, everything is fallible, so fallible, from our electric grid to the worthless holes that are being dug up over in West Texas, drilled and ignored. We've got Keystone Pipeline going in from Alaska all the way to ending at Texas. We take the oil. Well, all America has to do is just stop at the Texas border and make sure everybody throughout the rest of the nation gets all that oil coming out of Keystone. You know, while Texas is left with nothing. And don't get me wrong, Texas has some real good light natural gas that's currently owned that's currently on property owned by a Chinese businessman who's only sending it to China. We're not getting any of it. So, you know, I think Ted Cruz needs to shut up. I think everybody that wants secession really needs to take a step back and look before they leap. I think it's just a dumb, idiotic thing to try to go for secession right now. And one of the main reasons is because they just don't like Biden as president. Nobody was thinking crap like this when Trump was in charge, giving all the CEOs and businesses all the tax breaks that they wanted. Everybody thought it was great to be an American, you know. But now Biden's here. He wants the wealthy to pay their fair share of taxes. He wants the gas and fuel plant to actually do work, instead of say, well, we need more money to drill more. They need to reopen those drill holes, refineries. They need to reopen everything and get back to work. Get their stuff back to fully function, instead of griping and complaining for more money. All this good stuff. Biden is here. He wants all this crap done, and he wants to do it non-biasly. Help for the people in there, and help for the people over there. And as far as the military goes, remember, Biden has enough money to put X amount of billions of dollars just to help out Ukraine. And that's without sending any of our army or military over there. There's no way in hell, Texas, if all of us was to actually unite and stand up against the U.S., there'd be no way in hell we'd survive. We would get our asses kicked all the way from Abilene down to Laredo. So, yeah, screw this, guys. They don't know what they're talking about. Secession is a nice dream, but it's not gonna happen. Not right now, anyway. Not right now. Especially not under these bullshit circumstances. And I do apologize for the cursing. I forgot I'm doing this for YouTube. My fault. So that's it right there. I do apologize for not going through every single one of these in elaborate form, but that's I'm gonna get canceled. Somebody's gonna find this offensive, and I'm gonna get another strike on me. So I'll make sure to type in the site of the podcast that I'm gonna be relaying every single one of these, but in full detail. So that's it. Y'all take care. Y'all take it easy. Have a good one. Stay safe out there. It's we're not done. We're not there yet, but we will. Just hang in there. Hang tough. Hang in there. We'll see you around. This is Chris with Chris's Comments, signing out.